Hi, we're talking about Your Money Matters on NDTV Profit, and my name is Alex Matthew. Now, this show gets you actionable insight on everything personal finance related, and sometimes that relates to your investments, sometimes it relates to your spending, other times we're talking about your taxes. Today, we're going to talk about what it means if you are a non-resident Indian and you're making your way back to Indian shores, as a lot of people are doing now. What should you bear in mind? What are the tax aspects that should draw your attention, and is there a checklist for you to follow? Joining me today is Dilshad Bilimoria, who is the Managing Director and Chief Financial Planner of Dilza Consultants. Thanks so much, Dilshad, for taking the time. Let me start by asking whether in the recent past, or perhaps over the last year or two, you've interacted with more people than you have in the past, people that are making their way back to India.
Yes, absolutely. We've had a lot of people who've actually had emotional ties and wanted to come back to India to their, be with their parents or take care of their, siblings or some medical issues. So yes, we've had a lot of cases as such.
So I did ask you, what is the primary aspect to pay attention to? And when you are returning, there is a terminology that is, one, there is non-resident Indian, and there is also resident but not ordinarily resident. And this is from a tax perspective. So can you explain the difference between the two?
Right. So when a person is, for all practical purposes, they are called a resident individual. And if they step outside India for more than 182 days from the income tax perspective, they are called a NRI, or a non-resident individual. And for people who are coming back to India, they have a special status called the RNOR, which is resident and not ordinarily a resident. And this is provided by the Indian government and income tax authorities for a very small period of time. So if the person is coming back, especially for good, it's important that one times their entry back into India.
Okay. Now, this timing is absolutely important. Why is it significant? What are the benefits that are afforded to you as a resident but not ordinarily resident Indian? How does that differ with what is provided for a non-resident Indian?
Right. So when a person is coming back to India, let me share this as an example. Say they are coming back in this financial year. So we are in financial 25-26, and say they are coming in the month of July. They will, therefore, the requirement of, RNOR still makes them an NRI, and, they will definitely not be called an RONR in financial 25-26. However, if they plan their entry back to India between Jan to March of 26, they will be called an RNOR for financial 25-26. and financial 26-27 and financial 27-28. And this would cause them the benefit of several other benefits that accrue to resident individuals in India, which otherwise is not applicable to NRIs. So this status and this window of RNOR is actually very beneficial to such people.
Got it. Okay, and you spoke about the fact that if you're returning late, I just want to understand why that is the case. Is this simply what the rules provide for? If you're reaching late in a financial year, you're allowed to carry that forward for 3 financial years, which is obviously more beneficial than arriving earlier, where you have the benefit for only 2 financial years. And so therefore, should you time your arrival, in your opinion?
Yeah, absolutely, because there are so many benefits that RNOR people get as status compared to NRIs. So the income tax authorities gives them a host of benefits, which can be applicable to RNOR status. I could share the benefits with you as well.
Please do so. Please do so.
Right. So the first status of having the RNOR benefit is they are not taxed on their worldwide income compared to the NRI status. So as we know, income tax authorities would tax individuals on worldwide or global income, and they need to pay taxes in India for the same. However, when a person is coming back to India, for an RNOR status that they accrue, take the benefit of, they don't have to pay tax on that, worldwide income. And therefore, we try and ensure that all assets that are not needed by them for the next couple of years, and if they're planning to move for good, are, moved to the resident country of India, so that they don't have to basically pay tax on global income in India. So that's one very big advantage. The second big advantage is the RFC account, which basically holds foreign currency, is actually tax-free for an RNOR status. And this is not the case when you are an NRI or when you are holding NRE and NRO accounts. So again, being an RNOR status, when you're coming back to India, the income tax authorities allow for the interest that you earn on the RFC account, which is held only for a short period until your status and update of KYC, etc., is done. And this interest is completely tax-free. The third benefit that accrues to RNORs who are coming back, individuals coming back to India, is basically they get the tax slab benefit that is not applicable to NRI. So as we know that if I were to invest in certain instruments as an NRI, I'm going to be taxed at the highest tax slab with surcharge, cess, etc. And that goes as high as between 38 and 40%. But if I am an RNOR status, again, the income tax lends the benefit to the individual to ensure that the same tax slabs are applicable as resident individuals. Again, the fourth option is that as an RNOR, since I'm coming back to India mostly for good, I can invest in instruments that are typically not allowed to be invested in by NRIs, right? So I can invest in PPF, I can invest in land, agricultural land, and these are options that are not applicable to individuals who are NRIs.
Got it. Okay, so you've spelled out quite a bit in that explanation of the benefits of being resident but not ordinarily resident Indian. But I do have a couple of follow-up questions, Dilshad, and one of that has to do with the sale of property. So suppose an NRI is selling property, there is a requirement from the perspective of the buyer to have tax collected at source. And this is on the overall value of the property, not just the capital gains that might accrue from the sale of that property. Does this also apply to a resident but not ordinarily resident Indian?
Ideally, it should, but this needs to be checked by a chartered accountant. The NRI status typically would ensure that, like you rightly said, on property, a TDS of 20% is being deducted. But if you are an RNOR and you are registering the property in your status of RNOR, it should ideally be allowed as a resident individual gets the same benefits.
Got it. Now, I know that you described this in some form and fashion when you talked about the benefits of being a resident but not ordinarily resident Indian. But if we're talking about repatriation of all of your assets, assuming that you're coming back for good, is there a process that you would say is the ideal process to follow?
Absolutely. So in one case, we had a client who had completely paid off their taxes before returning to India for good. And therefore, now he has no other source of income in the US, and he's now back to India. What we are trying to do is that in this RNOR status period, we are trying to ensure that the tax slabs that he has in India, we're trying to maximize the benefits so that even when he brings back the assets to India, he does not have to pay tax, because now his status being RNOR, he will be taxed as per the tax slabs on various assets. So I think even timing how these assets come back to India, you cannot just bring back, for example, say your Fidelity investments or of your 5 to 9 child education plans, or of course 401. Typically, we ask clients to hold on till their retirement for various benefits. But I think timing the entry in terms of bringing back assets to India is also very important, so that they're not taxed at one shot on a large amount of assets that they bring.
Just on that 401k, and here you're talking about the equivalent of the Provident Fund here in India, right, for people in the United States.
Right.
What are the implications of bringing money down the line? So if you're saying that you're not going to take advantage of the RNOR or the resident but not ordinarily resident status, which is only applicable for 2 or 3 years, as the case may be, but assume that you're doing it 1 decade down the line as a resident, what are the tax implications then?
So as we know, when the 401ks are invested, typically they are, there are two types. You either can get the benefit of tax deduction at the time of investment, or you get the Roth. I think the other account is called the Roth, where you actually don't take the benefit of tax deduction while investing. It's the equivalent of our EPF in India. And at the time of retirement, basically, you are, going to be taxed on income. So what we typically advise the clients is, if they are going to come back for good, we take a while until which we decide into how and if they should be actually, because the 401 accounts are taxed at the highest tax slabs. Instead, what we do is we try and build in the net present value of these cash flows into their retirement planning model, such that over a period of time, they start bringing back those amounts, in phases. But anyway, they will be taxed completely. And ideally, if they are not living, overseas, the tax slabs are going to be much lower. So there again, we can, plan depending on their state taxes and central taxes, how much they bring back. But we definitely don't take that decision in that RNOR status of 2 to 3 years, because that is a much larger corpus, and it is something that needs to be planned in a way that does not hurt tax as well.
Now, Dilshad, last bit, and we are running out of time, so what I will do is I will run the aspects of the checklist that you've shared with us, so that our viewers get a sense of everything that they need to bear in mind. But from this list that you've shared with me, I would encourage you to tell us about the 4 or 5 top things that stand out to you that people should absolutely tick off their list.
Yeah. So I think the most important, and these are FEMA guidelines, is the moment the person comes back on Indian soil, it is mandatory that they inform income tax authorities that they are coming back to India. If you're an NRI and holding NRE accounts or NRO accounts, you can hold your NRE account until maturity, because you can continue to earn tax-free interest. But importantly, you need to update the bank, and you need to update income tax about your return. You need to update your KYCs. You need to convert your bank accounts from NRE, NRO to resident savings accounts. And like I said, we've advised some of our clients to continue to hold the NRE FDs, which is allowed until maturity, to enable them to earn the tax-free, especially in countries like Middle East and Singapore, where there are tax-friendly rules for NRE FDs as well.
Yeah, the Gulf as well, if I'm not mistaken, or rather the West Asia region, yes. From our perspective, it's West Asia. Thanks so much, Dilshad, for joining in, for speaking to me today. Pleasure having you.
Thank you so much for having me.